Live from the EPB Fiber Optic Studio, this is WLND Signal Mountain, Chattanooga.
Health, wellness, lifestyle, nutrition, and so much more. Welcome to Vital Health Radio, presented by CHI Memorial on 98.1 The Lake, a production of Whitfield Media Group, with your hosts, Ed Jones, owner of Nutrition World, and Dr. Christopher Greene, board-certified medical doctor.
Good morning and welcome to Vital Health Radio, presented by CHI Memorial, 98.1 The Lake. Thank you for taking your time this Sunday morning to join us. We are a radio show that's all about your health, wellness, lifestyle, nutrition, and healthy living. This is Ed Jones, owner of Nutrition World, and joining me is Dr. Christopher Greene with CHI Memorial, Georgia. And good morning, Dr. Greene.
I love how you're remembering to do that. We've now had our first meeting as the former chief of staff. I told you last week how Memorial will rotate the chiefs of staff every year. So you do a year of service, and then you're still going to meetings, still taking part, and I still get to give my 2 cents, just a little bit. So I enjoy those meetings. I enjoy still having some input into what's going on at CHI Memorial, Georgia. And we continue to plan to build that hospital in North Georgia somewhere in the next, say, 5 years, and I'm excited about that. So a big thanks to our title sponsor, CHI Memorial, for all that they're doing both in Chattanooga and at CHI Memorial, Georgia, for us and for everybody else that lives in this area. I also want to thank again LHC Group, that's Louisiana Healthcare, another sponsor for us, and I work with them through Home Care Solutions Home Health, as well as Heartlight Hospice of Dalton. And once again, it's a delight to work with so many wonderful people. You, Home Care Solutions, Heartlight, Benchmark Physical Therapy, and CHI Memorial and CHI Memorial, Georgia. What a great pleasure to be a primary care doctor in this area for over 20 years. I love doing that, and it just gets better every day. We're having a lot of new patients, some because of this show, and you. Thank you so much, Ed, and thank you to our listeners. And again, my thanks to all of our patients, all of our listeners, to you, Ed, and to CHI for what they do. And such an honor to carry on this tradition that's been going on in my family now over 150 years, which is just a bit on the humbling side. Mm-hmm. So, Ed, how has your week been?
Always super busy. Thank you, my friend. And yes, I am the owner of Nutrition World since 1979. And it started as a very humble little granola kind of health food store, carried very basic products. In fact, my entire store, I've never said this, I went to the bank, my father co-signed a loan for me, so I opened the entire business for $25,000, and that included the cash register, the shelves, the inventory, the painting of the walls, and I know that may sound like a lot of money, but $25,000 in the opening of business would cover about 8 feet of my shelving today with inventory. That's
Wow.
how much inventory is on simply 8 to 12 feet of our inventory. It would be $500,000 to $1 million to open a business today. Thank goodness that Chattanooga has been kind to me, and I certainly have worked myself hard enough to make it happen if it could, and it did. My daughter will be carrying on the tradition, and I will say she is, by the time you listen to this, she will have her first baby, and it's very, very exciting, of course.
Congratulations to her and to you and your entire family.
Thank you, thank you. In fact, yesterday was her last day for 10 weeks.
So I imagine you're going to post some pictures on your website?
There will be pictures on the website, and as you know how outspoken I am about my profession and my passion for nutrition, yesterday I requested with her a video and what I wanted to talk about, which will be posted probably just in the next 3 days, is the fact that she had an exemplary pregnancy. And today we have an epidemic of gestational diabetes and all the other issues that come from miscarriages to all the swellings and all of the other issues that come with pregnancies for so many women these days. And I went on there on my rant and I said, you're not being told all the truth, because when someone tells you it's just fate, it's just bad luck, it's just your genes, it is not true. So much of the reason we're having difficulties is we don't nourish the body correctly 6 months before and during the pregnancy. The amount of information that's misinformation that she has received has been staggering. Many times the people or people who are telling her what to do are living in about a 15-year-old pattern of information. So we did a video. Katie is going to explain the 5 steps and tips that she used to create this amazing pregnancy. And so look for that on Facebook and social media in the next week.
You may want to communicate some of that to ACOG, American College of OBGYN. I mean, why not? Just share it with them and maybe open their eyes and their minds.
That's right. Sometimes that happens and sometimes it doesn't. But if you don't try it, it will never work.
If you don't talk to them, it'll never happen. So
it'll never happen. Just like my son-in-law last night, I saw him at Publix. He went and bought a $1 lottery ticket. And I said, you know what? If you don't play it, you'll never win it. So you got to go out there sometimes and attempt it anyway, don't we?
Yeah, we love talking about this, but so often we in the medical field are way behind when it comes to ideas that are not our own. We were talking about that a little bit before we went on the air. If somebody doesn't like your idea, or if they have an idea contrary to yours, a lot of people just shut them off, especially physicians who often think that they are just smarter than everybody else in the world. Thankfully, most of us are not quite that narcissistic, but there are plenty of narcissists left in the world that will not listen to any other points of view. But I think the times are changing, and just like, you and me and a lot of people that we've talked to on this show, minds are being opened, eyes are being opened, and the discussion is there, and it's a good discussion, and the truth and the wisdom is probably somewhere in between the extreme points of view.
Absolutely. I had a lady yesterday had come to Nutrition World, and her partner had looked to be about 42, has stage 4 colon cancer, and she was in there asking about, ideas and options, and I said, please don't do what some people do, which is believe that taking vitamins and eating can cure this cancer, because that's swinging way too far to this side. And also be skeptical and be informed all the way to the other side. Try to create a team of people that you trust that can allow you to journey through this difficult passage with wisdom, and not just believe anyone, including people in my field. I'm skeptical of 2 groups of people, one of which is pilots, believe it or not. And I'm not one of those because I'm a member of a tribe. I'm a member of a pilot tribe because I fly small planes. I wouldn't fly with 50% of the pilots out there in small planes. They can become complacent. They're good human beings, but they don't pre-flight correctly. They don't practice correctly. And I'm not being judgmental of them. I'm just being realistic. 50% of all the pilots that fly where I fly, I will never sit in the right seat of that plane. And that's the same of so many different fields. I was a policeman. I'm more than ready to speak the truth if it comes to maybe sometimes the actions of policemen are not appropriate. I'm not going to sit there and defend it simply because I was a policeman. And I don't really care for people in the medical field always defending their position simply because they went to a school and they have a piece of paper on the wall. That isn't wisdom, that's knowledge. And those are 2 different things. I'm sorry to be ranting.
No, I'm hoping. I was just listening about the pilots. I'm thinking, if you have equipment failure and you're flying, you can't pull over to the side of the road and get out and look at it. So I cannot imagine someone not doing a good pre-flight and making sure everything is okay to the best of your knowledge.
Well, in commercial airlines, it's different because they're forced to do the trainings necessary. However, all of us who fly on the commuter jets that go between point A to point B, the smaller ones that have maybe 40 seats, do you know that most of those pilots are on simulators only before they get in that plane to fly, and the first time they fly is with passengers. Now, they are the co-pilot, not the pilot. In fact, when I went to fly this past Tuesday, I went up and did 3 simulated engine outs. What I do with that is I get close to the airport at Collegedale, I pull the throttle completely back, and then I'm pretending I have no engine. And I got to practice immediately doing the right thing. Guess what? 2 times I did not make it. I had to throttle up or I would have hit trees. You know what? The 3rd time I nailed it. Now I'm on my game again. So if that engine quits next week, I am practiced. If it had quit the week before, I was not practiced.
Wow.
So,
well, be glad also you're talking about physicians maybe having less than open minds, and that's true. I will say for the American Board of Family Medicine, I switched, I guess just this year, to a pilot project, and we take boards. It's a smaller set of boards. We used to do that every 7 to 10 years. Now I do boards every 3 months. So you can do it all at once every 3 months or a little by little over that. But I'm finding that as much as I really don't like taking boards, I mean, it's just not that much fun. The education that we're receiving is more up to date, it's current. They're opening their minds, I see, to new ideas that I haven't seen before, and you're getting it currently. So at least kudos to ABFM for doing that. And I know it's a pilot project. I hope they keep doing that because I think it's good for us.
Absolutely. And, of course, the overwhelming philosophy still of most medical is heavy reliance on pharmaceuticals, which I certainly have no problem with if it's appropriately used. It's just that they don't seem to embrace the functional medicine research, which is the research on what can we do to nourish the body so that we don't have to use as many pharmaceuticals. But it is changing, and you are right. It is becoming more positive.
I sent 2 people for acupuncture a couple of weeks ago. And I'll tell you this, a little bit of a raised eyebrow when a traditional medical doctor does that. But I'm thinking, when I see the raised eyebrows, I'm like, open your mind, think about this, think about being on a medicine chronically for the rest of your life, or a major surgery. Would you rather try something else or not?
Well, I always commend you for your gutsiness and for your wisdom. And guess what? We've already used up 11 minutes, so it's time for us to take a break. And when we come back, we're going to be discussing more about your health and nutrition. That plus more to come. For Dr. Greene, I'm Ed Jones, and stay with us.
You're listening to Vital Health Radio, presented by CHI Memorial on 98.1 The Lake. We'll be back after these messages. Welcome back to Vital Health Radio, presented by CHI Memorial on 98.1 The Lake.
Welcome back, and thank you for making us a part of your day. If you're always on the move, download the free radio.com app to your smartphone or tablet and keep us tuned in each Sunday morning right here on 98.1 The Lake. We are a radio show that's all about your health, wellness, lifestyle, nutrition, and healthy living. I'm Ed Jones with Nutrition World, back again with my partner and buddy, Dr. Christopher Greene, and today we are going to be talking in the next segment about kidney stones with Dr. Mark Curran. Welcome, Dr. Curran.
Thank you for having me.
I've been listening to people's health stories for 41 years, since 1979, and I know all too well the torture that comes with people with kidney stones. In fact, I had a lady a few months ago who said, I had 4 children and I've had 1 kidney stone. I would take 4 more children's childbirths over the 1 kidney stone. That sounds about accurate, doesn't it, Dr.
Yeah,
Curry?
I hear a lot of stories just like that, and I suppose at this point in my life I'm lucky enough not to have had one, but I certainly have heard my fair share of stories of people who certainly have passed some stones and had pretty terrible times with them.
And I hear the same things from my patients.
Yes,
It sounds horrible.
Well, we do live in what they call the kidney stone belt, don't we?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Most of the Southeast is called the Stone Belt.
And why is that, do you think?
Well, it gets hot down here, and as I'm sure we'll talk about a little bit more later, the number one risk factor for making stones is dehydration, actually. So people end up spending a lot of time outside. It's too hot. They're not drinking enough water to stay hydrated, so they make stones. And as time goes on, those stones get bigger if they stay dehydrated, and sure enough, you end up passing a stone.
Out of curiosity, just thinking about that being the Southeast and the heat, why not the Southwest?
That's a good question.
I've never thought about that until just now. So
maybe they have a little better habits with drinking. And I do want to say, drinking sweet drinks does not count as drinking water, because that does not hydrate you like unsweet tea might, or pure water, right?
The 2 waters of the South, sweet tea and Coca-Cola.
There you go. Yeah, and in my world, Coca-Cola and sodas do contribute to a very harsh environment in the body that can contribute to a lot of bad things, one of which is kidney stone. Now, so Dr. Curran, we always hear calcium stones. Is that the prevalent form of kidney stones?
So there are several different types of stones that can be made in the kidneys. The most common type are calcium stones, and among those is going to be calcium oxalate. Mm-hmm. And oxalate is a compound that's found in all sorts of different foods and vegetables. You can Google oxalate-rich foods and find a list of them. A couple that come to mind are spinach is extremely high in oxalate. And things like peanuts. So There's a whole list of them, and a high oxalate diet is certainly something that can increase your risk of making calcium oxalate stones.
And again, I think that's great advice. You Google oxalate, which is spelled Oxalate, and you can see the food list. And those people who are obviously dehydrated and eating a lot of oxalate foods, they're again increasing their risk of these kidney stones. I will put a plug in for something because, I know that in the medical field, it has to go down certain pathways, different recommendations or drugs or things. But I have been hugely impressed with this product called Oxalate Reducing Enzyme. I'm going to give you a box of them, Dr. Curran.
Okay.
All you do is there's a little packet in here, and it's a powder that will completely digest the oxalates. This is medically researched very well, very good studies on these. And I use them every day because I know that it's probably best. I'm 62. I don't want to. I just want to take care of everything I can because I'm neurotic. That's one reason. But this stuff is fantastic for those who cannot reduce it to a level because they love certain foods. So,
Well, thinking of prevention, I'm thinking since Dr. Curran said dehydration is the main risk factor, would hydration be the best thing to do? I mean, something
Absolutely.
like the oxalate
There's no
reducer
question
is good.
about it. So before I move on to the 4 things that I tell patients that any person can do to reduce the risk of making stones, one thing I'll mention before we move on from the calcium stone topic is a lot of people think that because the majority of stones are calcium stones that they should take in less calcium in their diet and try to avoid calcium. And that what we, originally we thought that was the right idea. What we have learned since that time is that if you actually reduce the amount of calcium that you take in your diet, your risk of making calcium oxalate stones goes up.
I love that.
And
yes.
the reason for that is when you take in oxalate-rich foods, that oxalate ends up in your GI tract. And if you don't take in enough calcium, what will happen is there will be more oxalate available in your gut to be absorbed. Whereas if you take in a normal amount of calcium, the calcium binds the oxalate in your GI tract and it passes along without being absorbed. But if you don't take in enough calcium, you absorb the oxalate ends up in your bloodstream, then it ends up in your urine where it binds calcium in your urine and you make stones.
Lovely information. So really the bullet points at this point are stay hydrated. But on the hydration issue, what do you recommend as far as the total quantity of water per day?
Okay, great question. So I'll sort of go through my 4 points that people can do to reduce the risk of making stones. And the way I present it to people is you got to do more of 2 things and less of 2 things. The more of 2 things are the easier ones. Number 1, more water or more fluid. Like you were mentioning, water is always best, but really, as far as I'm concerned, you just need to dilute your urine. So more fluid, fluid. For people who are high-risk stone formers, and there are some criteria you can meet to be considered that, but we recommend for those patients that they need to be drinking at least 2.5 liters of fluid a day.
How many ounces is that? Do you?
There are 30 cc's in an ounce. You do the math. I don't know how many ounces that's going to be off the top of my head, but it's not an insubstantial amount
Right.
of water. Most people know what one of those sort of common Nalgene bottles is. That's going to be a liter, and you got to be drinking at least 2.5 of
Gotcha.
those a day.
I'm tending to remember something from med school, something like 1.5 liters per day is the average need for a 70-kilo man, something like that.
I mean, that sounds
so. It's
about
really
right.
not
So
that
it's-
much more.
It's not
than
too
what
much
we
more.
require.
If you carry around a water bottle and you're conscious of how much you're drinking, it's not too much harder to actually drink 2.5 liters of fluid a day.
Okay.
But some people who are prone to making stones, they really need to be doing that.
Well, I hope coffee counts.
It does. It does. A little bit.
And again, I may be saying the same thing you're going to say, but I do recommend to people, you don't do this like once a day. You don't get up and drink this half a gallon and expect, okay, I've got my water done.
Oh,
it
sure,
needs
yeah.
to be separated out
Yeah,
somewhat,
I would drink
right?
it over the course of
Good.
the day, for
Thank you.
sure.
And what's your other steps?
So that's number 1, more water in your diet or more fluids. Number 2, more citrate in your diet. Citrate is a compound that's found in citrus fruits, lemons, limes, oranges. Basically, what citrate does is it binds calcium in the urine, but it doesn't crystallize and make stones. So basically, it reduces the availability of calcium in your urine for making stones. So an easy way to knock out numbers 1 and 2, I tell patients, are first of all, get a water bottle that you think looks cool and don't mind walking around with. Keep it full all the time. Every time you fill it up, take a half a lime, half a lemon, whichever you prefer, squeeze it down into the water, drop the rind and everything down in there, and then enjoy your water like that. So that pretty easily knocks out 1 and 2. So that's more of 2 things. The less of 2 things, these are always harder for patients. Number 3 is going to be less animal protein in your diet. And that's basically all meats. It's a hard one to do, but what I tell patients is to think of trying to reduce the amount of animal protein intake on a schedule. So let's just take, for example, someone who actually has some form of animal protein in every meal of every week or every day. So 3 meals a day, 7 days a week. What I tell them is, if that's you, consider cutting out all the animal protein in a certain number of meals on a schedule during the week. So don't have any animal protein, lunch on Tuesday, lunch on Wednesday, dinner on Thursday, and then just follow that schedule for 3 weeks. And if you have no problem with that, then try to bump that up to 5 meals a week. And if you have no problem with that, go up to 7, and just sort of on a schedule, try to reduce the amount of animal protein intake.
And are you including fish, shellfish, or how about eggs? Eggs as well? Okay.
All of that. But again, you can sort of, based on other health benefits of animal proteins, you can sort of tailor your approach. Maybe you could cut out more red meat compared to fish and poultry, or things like that. So 3 is less animal protein in your diet. Number 4, and the last one, is going to be less sodium in your diet. And this is going to hit true to a lot of people who also have hypertension or high blood pressure. Calcium likes to follow sodium. So if you have a lot of sodium in your diet and your kidneys are processing and put a lot of sodium into your urine, calcium is going to follow that sodium into your urine, and you're going to be at increased risk for making kidney stones, calcium stones. So when I tell people that, the immediate response I get from everybody is, but I don't ever use the salt shaker. That's not really the problem. The salt shaker, everyone thinks the salt shaker is the primary culprit with that, but in reality, it's the amount of sodium that's already in the foods that you're buying. And I'm sure you guys have talked ad nauseum about this topic. But what I tell people is, whoever's doing the grocery shopping at home, just make sure when they are, comparing different options for the same product, try to look at the nutrition facts on the back and just choose the one that has less sodium in it.
Yeah, one little example I remember for my son, when he loved Hormel chili, a small container of Hormel chili had 2,400 milligrams of sodium. That's a lot.
What is that, like 3 times the daily allotment of sodium?
It's just crazy.
And you are right. Most of the time, it's not we're picking up the salt shaker. It is in the foods. And, of course, we live in a nation that is addicted to processed, convenient foods.
Yeah.
And that is just a recipe for disaster, not only for kidney stones.
Which we preach against a lot.
The
processed foods.
And, it's an 80-20 rule. I mean, Dr. Greene, he goes off the wagon just as much as I do, but really live the 80-20 rule of being strict 80% of the time.
But then we hydrate and we get to the gym.
That's right. Really quickly, Dr. Kern, we're not going to talk about this on this segment. Perhaps we'll have you back, but lithotripsy, that is the number one thing people do for the kidney stones?
Well, so it's a very commonly used one, and historically it has been the most commonly used. The technology for stone treatment, we'll talk a little bit about it later, is shifting, but certainly the technology in lithotripsy has also advanced and remains a spectacular means of treating kidney stones.
And that is using shock waves to break it up into small
so
pieces.
They use sound waves that are basically focused and targeted at a stone to essentially pulverize it into sand, which just tumbles down the ureter and passes, and you hardly ever know it.
Well, and maybe in 30 seconds, what would be the initial symptoms of a kidney stone?
Flank pain. So you'll have pain that starts sort of on the left or right side of your back, and it can radiate down around the front into the groin. And oftentimes with kidney stones, you will have associated nausea and vomiting, because the stones, people think that stones in themselves create pain, but really they don't. It's the position of the stone that determines whether or not it causes pain. So stones can either be obstructing or non-obstructing, which means they are either blocking the flow of urine out of the kidney or they're not. Now, stones that are not obstructing do not cause pain. So people will come in and say they had an x-ray, there's kidney stones there, I've had some back pain for a while, I think it's that. And if the CT scan does not demonstrate an obstructing stone, I usually counsel them and say your pain is probably due to something else, but these stones could move at some point and they could cause you problems down the road.
Does the size of the stone have a great, let's say, bearing on the amount of pain they feel?
Not necessarily.
Because people like to brag about the size of the stone.
Sure,
when they come to see me.
it's a fun thing to talk about, but it all really depends on whether or not the stone is obstructing or non-obstructing. 'Cause I've seen patients who have a 10 millimeter stone in the ureter, but it's somehow or another not obstructing, and they're not hurting from it very much. And then I've seen people with a 2 millimeter stone that's about to pop into the bladder, but still stuck in the tube, and they've got some serious obstruction from it, and they are just rolling around on the bed in agony.
Well, Dr. Kearns, you have been so freaking informative, and I know that when and if my day comes with a kidney stone, I know who I will be calling. Can you tell people, if they want to contact you, as to the phone number? You are with CHI Memorial Urology.
Sure. My office is primarily out in Hickson. It's in the office building attached to the CHI Memorial in Hickson. The office number there is going to be 423-541-1125. You can actually contact me at that office. Alternatively, I am seeing patients in North Georgia as well. On Battlefield Parkway, there's an office building there. I'm there Wednesday mornings. So you can contact the clinic at that number and ask about being seen down there as well.
And that would be my office, same building, 4700 Battlefield Parkway?
That's right, yeah.
Okay.
Lovely. Oh, lovely. Thank you so much, my friend. And it is time for us to take another break. When we come back, we're going to be discussing more about your health and some of the restaurants that we ate at this week. We've got that, plus more to come. For Dr. Greene, I'm Ed Jones, and stay with us.
We're all about healthy living and enjoying life. Vital Health Radio, presented by CHI Memorial on 98.1 The Lake. We'll be back after these messages. Welcome back to Vital Health Radio, presented by CHI Memorial on 98.1 The Lake.
Welcome back, and thank you for making us a part of your day. We are a radio show that is all about your health, wellness, lifestyle, nutrition, and healthy living. I am Ed Jones with Nutrition World, along with my partner, Dr. Christopher Greene. And here we are again, chatting about health. Yours, mine, his, everybody's. And I do want to say that I ate usually I don't eat at huge commercial restaurant chains, but I ate at the Cheesecake Factory actually yesterday.
Love that place.
And I was skeptical because, of course, the name itself tends to lead me to think of a lot of unhealthy food. But I was very impressed with their menu that is actually labeled healthy. And they have about 20 choices with, of course, all the nutrition content listed. And the salad I got last night had probably 6 different green vegetables, the kale, the broccoli, the right kind of dressing, and I did get some protein on it. I got some steak that was excellent. So I was impressed. And as long as you stick with the healthy menu, I will be back, let me tell you. Have you been over there lately?
Not lately. It's been a couple of months, probably 1 to 2 months, but I've been there several times. Love the food. Excellent. Did get some, I can't remember what kind of cheesecake it was, but once did get a big piece of cheesecake, and wow, one of the best I've ever had.
Really?
And I can't remember the dishes I had. I've had some healthier things, some of the fish offerings, but nothing has been bad. I will say that. If I could remember exactly what I got, I would tell the listeners, but I have no idea. I haven't eaten anywhere terribly interesting the last week. By interesting, I mean new. I think last week we were talking about the Maple Street Biscuit Company, and that had been really good. Not healthy, but very tasty. I did drop by the Feed again, one of my favorite places in town. So they did not have a band or anything, but the food was excellent. So had a fish dish and also shrimp and grits. Just wonderful. Again, probably not the best choice, but it was good. They do have a great artichoke dip. Have you had that there?
I have not.
So, whether you like artichoke or not, I normally don't, but that dip it's excellent.
Sean Whitfield, who is the producer of this show, sent us both a text last night. It was really, really fun to read. Gentleman Oscar from El Mason in Hamilton Place told Sean that he listens to Vital Health Radio every single Sunday morning before he goes to work at 10
And Oscar,
a.m.
we appreciate that. Thank you.
Yes, he said all his friends do too. He said he loves the information that we're talking about. I did, and I know that that you and I are observers of people's health because that's our career. But as the headlines read, as more Latin Americans eat processed food, obesity rates are surging. And it is a sad thing because as long as people ate more of their tribal type of foods that they were kind of programmed to eat because of the history of their genetics and their generations, things went well. But we now are finding so easy to buy cheap food that fills us up, that's also addictive, that I see a lot of people, and you do too, Dr. Greene, that are obese, children included. We need to get back to real food. That's what it is, real food. And it's really scary what we're witnessing right now because I don't see any really into it in the short run because commercializing of food and the fact that you can get 10 crystals for $5.99. That's what's on the sign, and it is every single day. And when you're short of money and you're hungry, what temptation is that? I mean, it's easy to pull in.
Oh yeah, just a drive away through that drive-through, and you got your $5.99 horrible 10 crystal gut bomb. Sorry, Crystal, but I never fail to have abdominal pain after I eat it, Crystal. But is it tasty? Absolutely. I mean, there's just something about the crystals that actually bring a pleasant memory from childhood to me, but you cannot live on that stuff. If you do it once in a while, that 80-20 rule like we talked about, I think that's fine. No reason not to. And let me thank El Maison, by the way. I'm having a flashback. They often bring catering to our office. Thank you. And the food is always excellent, but they typically bring me some grilled peppers, and I always appreciate that. And just very kind of them to do it. And I think they do that for me because they know how much I like peppers.
Oh, that's great. I love locally owned and people who really care about what they're doing. And on that same note, we're really trying at Nutritional World to help people to learn how to be healthy because just what you said a minute ago, you remember from childhood the pleasant memories of eating a crystal, but I can guarantee you, and not even knowing your childhood, it was a special treat. It was not a daily activity.
No, absolutely. I was blessed with a mother. I mean, granted, and mother, if you're listening, I'm sorry, but the lemon chicken, I can remember that, but she was always one for health-conscious foods, would have usually a healthy protein, salad, healthy vegetable. So I grew up with that and ate a lot of broccoli and other more healthy veggies with my meals, and the only thing I would say we didn't do right is that you had to clean your plate off. And as I may have mentioned, my youngest child stops eating when she's not hungry anymore, not when she's full. And I think that's actually her way of doing it. If you have healthy foods and you stop when you're not hungry anymore, it's probably the way to do it. It's a good start anyway.
It is a good start, and it is counterintuitive for those of us who received the message about the starving children. And it did make us feel guilty that we left foods on our plate when we thought there were other people starving, but none of that food really ever helped the people who were hungry, one. And secondly, as we talked about last week when we discussed Dr. Gupta and his journeys to these different cultures to Okinawa for people who live to be 100 and very healthy. And one of those was they never eat till they're completely full. They walk away at about probably 80% because the excessive food is what's causing a lot of health problems, isn't it?
I think so, and I think we're trained to do it that way to eat. I mean, look at the marketing, the advertising right now. It's cheap food, fast, and it's typically unhealthy. And granted, that's not always the way it is, but we're trained to eat frequently and unhealthy things and snack all the time and drink sodas. And that's something, there are very few restaurants now that are pushing healthier choices, but thankfully there are more now than there used to be. And we're teaching people about shopping from the outside of the store, trying to stay away from the processed foods. So it can be done, but it's a matter of lifestyle change and just reprogramming ourselves and our own habits.
It is all about programming, and I appreciate you saying that because Nutrition World, actually, I had a discussion yesterday with my general manager, Chase. We are going to become what we called red dye free. And what that means is there's a whole host of coloring agents that is being used not only in junk food, it's being used in nutritional supplements. It's being used in athletic supplements. It's being used in these protein bars. And red dye, along with the others, are potentially harming our health. In fact, in the UK, I read this morning before I came, the same cereal that uses red dye, which are the Fruit Loops, that's I think one, but any cereal that has red coloring in this country uses red dye, which is a chemical. And in the UK, guess what they use? They use beet extract, because they will not allow red dyes to be given to anybody in the food, any food companies, and especially children. Because what happens with children is the bright colors start programming their visual and taste buds so that they don't want to see foods that don't have bright colors. They don't want to eat them. Well, broccoli has a good color, but it's not that bright red. It's not that bright, colorful Easter egg green. And so the companies who are doing this, they have a motive of programming us. The same as the cigarette companies know that nicotine is addictive. So we cannot be the puppet of this manipulation of these companies. And we have to try hard not to be, because they have become experts. I mean, just look at the commercials on not only TV, but on the social media and internet, how delicious everything can be packaged these days.
Well, they're brilliant with the marketing. As you were talking, I was thinking McDonald's popped up in all their bright colors, and immediately I can hear their jingle in the back of my mind. That's excellent marketing. Not that I'm going to run to McDonald's, but they're good at what they do. Also, don't forget, by the way, about red dye. It's a fairly common dye allergy as well.
Oh, yes, that's right. And the food doesn't have to be bright red to have red dye, a lot of it, because I know there's protein bars that they're barely red, but they have red dye in them. And there's some coatings on pharmaceuticals, I think, that have it. There's coatings on some of the lesser quality nutritional supplements. I want to mention that last Saturday we had at Nutrition World a pet health fair, the first one we've ever had. It did focus on dogs, and it was an outstanding success. What was its focus? Well, we started shopping at the big box stores, the PetSmarts and the other big places, and it was so frustrating and angered me to a point when I looked at the pet supplements. When we're talking, like if you go to a drugstore and you want to get your nutritional supplements, generally they're not as on the high-end level quality-wise at Nutrition World, but they're okay. There's not like any trash being sold at most stores. But that's not true of pet supplements. There's almost zero regulation, one. Secondly, zero ethics of the companies, because all they care about is the cash register ringing. So they're going to buy marketable, pretty products that they can make more profit on. It is despicable, the ingredients of these pet supplements. So Nutrition World has, again, taken a step up, and we refuse to sell anything but the most effective, clean products. And we have dog food now that is unlike any other. We have supplements for their gut health, for their anxiety, to help treat many of the disorders. In fact, Dr. Colleen Smith and another holistic vet in town that has been on here.
Absolutely, yeah.
They both came and were advising people on, nutritional advice and food advice and holistic advice, how to treat dogs that have real diseases without mega pharmaceuticals. Because again, I believe that the body has the ability to heal itself if we give it what it needs and we take away what's hurting it. And it's not just the human body, it is the pet body.
And that old segment from last year with her should be archived by now. I mean, it should be on there if people want to listen to it.
Yeah, you can go back and look at the vet interviews on vitalhealthradio.com. And I am going to be doing a podcast in the next few months with a holistic vet on the Holistic Navigator. I do want to say that I interviewed, it was the one time you've been gone, Dr. Greene, but Dr. Resnick came in, amazing interview on women's health. And it was part 1 and part 2 on the Holistic Navigator, because he came the week after, and we did this thing on menopause and on women's issues. He's has a vast history of functional medicine and obstetrics and gynecology. And he just moved to Portland, Oregon last week, so he's no longer in Chattanooga. But the Holistic Navigator, for any woman who's having menstrual hot flashes, seeking a more holistic type of path to help the body, listen to his part 1 and part 2, or Vital Health Radio. We had him here for 14 minutes, and he talked about the same thing here, just not as in depth. So go back on the vitalhealthradio.com and listen. And lastly, on the pet thing, I wanted to get back to this. On the so many people know this and so many people don't. But on the, I think CNN or Fox News headlines, this common sugar substitute is deadly for dogs, FDA warns, and that is xylitol. Xylitol is found in so many health foods because it is a healthy sweetener. But guess what? It doesn't take a whole lot to kill your dog. So my daughter already has, on probably 3 occasions, had to run her dog to the vet because the dog got into her xylitol mouthwash one time and got into a xylitol candy that she had left on the bed, and it doesn't take much. So everybody look out for xylitol. And
I had no idea about that.
Yeah.
You always hear chocolate with dogs, but
Right.
I have dogs that have eaten lots of chocolate and they've always been fine.
I know.
But you hear it's going to kill them, but then they get a Hershey bar and they're okay, and they want more.
Well, yeah, I know. I had a friend of mine who had some chocolate that had some, somehow had some marijuana in it too, and the dog ate a whole bag of it. It was an interesting little journey on that one. But guess what? It's time for us to take a break, and when we come back, we will be having Dr. Greene's spiritual moment. We've got that, plus more to come. For Dr. Greene, I'm Ed Jones, and stay with us.
You're listening to Vital Health Radio, presented by CHI Memorial on 98.1 The Lake. We'll be back after these messages. Welcome back to Vital Health Radio, presented by CHI Memorial on 98.1 The Lake.
Welcome back, and thank you for making us a part of your day. If you're always on the move, download the free radio.com app to your smartphone or tablet. And keep us tuned in each Sunday morning right here on 98.1 The Lake. We are a radio show that's all about your health, wellness, lifestyle, nutrition, and healthy living. I am Ed Jones, along with my partner, Dr. Christopher Greene. And in this segment, we always look forward to Dr. Greene's spiritual moment.
Thank you, Ed, for that introduction. And the spiritual moment is brought to you by Silverdale Baptist Church. If you would like to learn more about Silverdale, just visit their website, which is silverdalebc.com. That's silverdalebc.com. They also have an excellent app you can download for free. Now, today, we are considering the difficulties and stresses of life, which is a common thing I discuss with my patients really every day. Now, let's begin with a quote from William Ellery Channing. "Difficulties are meant to rouse, not discourage. The human spirit is to grow strong by conflict." And from Khalil Gibran, "Out of suffering have emerged the strongest souls. The most massive characters are seared with scars." Well, stress. We all experience it sometimes. It's that crushing feeling when you're going into something for which you may not be fully prepared, or about to receive news that may be painful. So, stress may be an unwelcome part of life, and it is more than a feeling, but it is less than the end of the world. Although it may not seem like you are in a situation like that right now, you are going to be okay. I know that's easier said than done. Another thing about stress, it has become so normal to many of us that we forget it's a problem. It becomes just like ambient background noise in our lives. We ignore it, well, until it becomes loud and unbearable. Then that stress hinders us from living the bold, courageous, passionate lives that we are called to live. Well, Jesus didn't call us to live stressed out lives. He calls us to live in freedom. He came to give us life and to enable us to live to the fullest. He also said that when we are weary or burdened, just come to him and he will give us rest. So today, if you are feeling stressed, you're not alone. And God is ready and willing to carry that stress for you. Let me close with a couple of biblical references. First, Matthew chapter 11, verses 28 through 30 from Jesus. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy, and my burden is light. And from 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 7, cast all your anxiety on him, because he cares for you. That is your spiritual moment for the day. Ed?
Thank you, my friend. And I know many people out there are also sending their appreciation for your words of wisdom. I've got always something that I'm playing with as far as my own personal journey of nutrition and health. And one thing you said in the spiritual moment actually was that things that are like common and seem to be just the way it is in life has become the norm. Doesn't mean it's what's healthy, and whether it be the emotional, spiritual, or physical or nutritional realm. And like obesity, the perception of people now is so radically different in 2019 than it was in 1980. Because I don't know about you, give me your feedback, but I know I was looking at some old films of my ex-wife when her parents were in the 1950s and 60s. It was a softball game. Not one single person, man or woman, seemed to be overweight. Well, that was the norm then. And if someone had been walking around as they are today, there's not even a thought pattern about the overweightness because so many people are obese.
Well, it's become a societal norm, like you said. Mm-hmm. What is that old adage about if you just take, I can't remember if it was a crab or a frog, I think it was a frog, if you just throw the frog in boiling water, it's going to jump right out, but if you put it in a normal room temperature and then slowly turn up the heat, it won't get out. It becomes just used to it, acclimatized to it, it just doesn't move. I don't know if that's true or not, I wouldn't do that to an animal. But we have gradually become used to so much. We can't in our lives, like I was saying, you get used to a stress level that's unhealthy. You really don't know to do anything about it because you're so used to it, but it's eating you up. So that's why so many of us in the medical field, I think, just burn out because they get used to it, keep adding to it because you can't tell that you're already at altitude, so you climb a little higher. And you just don't realize until you're at the top of Everest and there's no oxygen, and you're just dying of the stress. And I see that in colleagues on a regular basis. But we're doing that in society too with so many different things, obesity, like you mentioned, just multiple different lifestyle issues. And I guess we have become acclimatized.
And again, when you have an opportunity to step away, like sometimes if you travel to other countries or you go into nature or you just have a big break, like occasionally I will go to Hawaii. And when I return, it's like a shell shock coming back into this society of people who seem to be so less aware of their tremendous stress, they're less aware or less connected to the wisdom of their body. And they treat their bodies like pickup trucks, and they're just going to use them and abuse them, and then they hope to trade it in for a new one. But those trade-ins don't work too well.
The Hawaiians are an amazing, amazing people, and their connection to nature is much more, astute than ours. I mean, we're disconnected for the most part. What I really liked about them, I quit wearing a watch after a trip years ago just because I loved how so many of them did not wear a watch. It was morning or it was midday or it was afternoon, but they didn't go by so much of a schedule. Granted, you and I have to have some schedules, but I tried to be a little less schedule-oriented or at least not as controlled by it because they were less stressed than I was.
Boy, is that not so true that we are ruled by our clock? And people as super busy as we are, and many people listening, you have no choice. But it seemed like we even do that on our off days. And I look to the day. I'm not wanting to be in a different place than I am now. I truly do work at being in the moment, even with watches. But I do know that when I'm in a certain place like Hawaii, or maybe if I'm used to be on Florida trips and we didn't have the watch, it was such a relief. And just to roll with the flow of life.
It really is. A few months ago, CHI does have us do, like probably every professional out there, continuing education. We have to. But actually a very interesting one CHI had us do looked at different cultures around the world and how they view medicine and schedules. And I'm thinking it was, granted this has been 3 months ago since I did that, but One of the cultures I think that didn't go as much by schedule for the most part as we do was Middle Eastern culture. And so what they were saying was if somebody had an appointment at 10, they might be there at 10. It might be 11, 12, 1. It'd be some time, a reasonable time before the sun sets, but they didn't run on the same schedule we did. But part of that was, it made me laugh a little bit too, because that doesn't work very well with schedules, but the relaxed nature of that was appealing.
Yes, it is. I remember going to Paris long ago and watching the people just thrive at food times and laugh and converse.
And take forever with the meal.
Forever, but they were so joyful about every morsel and every conversation. They were truly in the moment. They weren't rushing to eat to get to the next moment.
The meal is, yes, and having been there, it's an adventure. It takes longer. It is a social event, is what it is.
Well, my friend, guess what? That is going to do it for this week's edition of Vital Health Radio, presented by CHI Memorial 98.1 The Lake. It is a production from the Whitfield Media Group and website by Avalon Design Studios. Thank you so much for listening, and we will be back here again next Sunday at 9 a.m. for a radio show that's all about your healthy living. Please know that you can go to vitalhealthradio.com to listen to any of the past shows and like us on Facebook and share these shows, because Dr. Greene and I both work very hard to help people help themselves. For Dr. Greene from CHI Memorial, Georgia, I'm Ed Jones with Nutrition World, and have a healthy and safe, happy day.
Thank you for listening to another edition of Vital Health Radio, presented by CHI Memorial on 98.1 The Lake with Ed Jones and Dr. Christopher Greene. Vital Health Radio, presented by CHI Memorial on 98.1 The Lake, is a production of Whitfield Media Group. Join us next Sunday.